I come to you with therapy. When it's time for the Haji Vodushi to lead, it's time for healing. I bring you nothing but sound healing. This is music. This one is therapeutic, just the way your soul likes it. It's not far away from us. I visited the land of sounds. I could taste it. I could taste the note, the blue ones, even the most horrible ones. They hit deep. They cut your heart. They let it all open, and they help you to. Means there is time for me. Gamalino means there is time for you. There is.
Le panafricanisme, c'est une idée révolutionnaire. L'idée d'unir les peuples du continent et des diasporas africaines autour d'un projet politique commun. Le panafricanisme englobe tout ce qui est africain. Cette idée a vu le jour en Europe, plus précisément parmi les diasporas noires qui vivaient, travaillaient ou étudiaient au cœur des grands empires coloniaux. Nous sommes en 1900. Henry Sylvester Williams est révolté par les expositions coloniales qui se succèdent à Londres, et il comprend très vite que la domination coloniale de l'Afrique est directement liée à la domination que subissent les Noirs dans les Caraïbes et dans les Amériques. Pour lui, il est urgent de faire front commun. Il est persuadé que la réponse au colonialisme doit être panafricaine. Il faut comprendre qu'à l'époque, les Noirs ne sont pas libres de leur mouvement. La majorité d'entre eux sont des colonisés qui doivent avoir l'accord de leurs colonisateurs pour se déplacer. La seule manière de réunir des Africains du continent et des diasporas à cette époque, c'était de profiter d'un événement international comme une exposition coloniale. L'idée de panafricanisme séduit immédiatement la presse noire qui émerge en Amérique du Nord et dans la Caraïbe. Marcus Garvey en fait une des bases de son mouvement, l'UNIA, qui vise à la libération des Noirs du monde. Mais la Première Guerre mondiale force à mettre en pause les réflexions. Après la guerre, les Africains se concertent. Sous l'impulsion de l'Américain W.E.B. Du Bois, à la tête de la NAACP, ils espèrent pouvoir créer un État indépendant gouverné par les Africains au cœur de l'Afrique. Mais les Occidentaux préfèrent se répartir les colonies allemandes et maintenir le colonialisme plus fort que jamais. Suite à cet échec, le tout premier congrès panafricain est organisé en 1919 à Paris. Il est organisé par les Américains W.E.B. Du Bois et Ida Gibbs Hunt. On y retrouve Blaise Diagne, Gratien Candace et Charles D.B. King. Un deuxième congrès est organisé à Londres en 1921. Les participants y rédigent le Manifeste de Londres, dans lequel ils s'organisent pour racheter des terres africaines et les soustraire à la domination européenne. Mais ce manifeste est aussi le point de départ de conflits entre différents courants de pensée parmi les Noirs de l'époque. Entre les Afro-Américains, on distingue les partisans de l'intégration et ceux du séparatisme noir. En Afrique, certains soutiennent la mission civilisatrice alors que d'autres revendiquent les valeurs africaines. Dans les Caraïbes, certains se sentent supérieurs aux Africains, alors que d'autres cherchent à retrouver leurs racines. Une chose est sûre, les congrès panafricains sont des espaces parfaits pour confronter la complexité des projets des Noirs du monde. En 1923, le troisième congrès se tient discrètement entre Londres et Lisbonne. Le quatrième congrès aura lieu à New York en 1927. Le cinquième se déroule à Manchester en 1945, juste après la Seconde Guerre mondiale. Le temps est au changement. Les peuples africains réclament leur indépendance. Le Ghana devient indépendant en 1957. Et immédiatement, Kwame Nkrumah convoque une série de conférences intitulées All African People's Conference. L'objectif est clair, redéfinir le panafricanisme depuis le continent, loin de la pression et du calendrier politique occidental. Le sixième en 1974 à Dar es Salaam en Tanzanie, le septième en 1994 à Kampala en Ouganda, Et le 8e sera divisé en 2 versions, une en 2014 à Johannesburg et l'autre en 2015 à Accra sur fond de conflit autour de la place de l'Afrique du Nord dans le projet panafricain. Aujourd'hui, la circulation des Noirs sur la planète reste extrêmement restreinte par l'organisation du monde créée par les anciennes puissances coloniales. Les afrodescendants des diasporas font entendre leur voix malgré leur minorisation politique.
L'Afrique doit s'unir.
Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs, les ministres, députés, représentants.
Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, representatives of Africa, spiritual traditional leaders gathered here in Lomé for the 9th Pan-African Congress of History, welcome to this day that is dedicated to our cultures, our traditions in Africa, for Afro-descendants and for our memory. Today we're going to celebrate all that binds us together, our culture, our tradition, our spirituality, everything that represents the bedrock of our identity, men and women that fight every day for more unity, for our dignity, for a strong representation of African countries on the international scene. We're here to share with you. They're here to share with you their vision, their fight. We told you at the opening ceremony today we're going to have a projection. We're going to follow the film Fana that is dedicated to Frantz Fanon in this year that we are celebrating the 100 years of his birth. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming here to share this moment with us. I especially want to salute all Afro-descendants who are on the continent for the first time in their life. We know how important this time is for you, and it is same for us. And to start this day, to open the day officially, I am going to give the floor to a man who is committed, a man that I have the honor to invite. He's fighting every day to promote and defend our culture, our identity, our dignity. Thank you, and join me to put our hands together to welcome the Minister of Art, Culture of Togo, Minister Isaac Chakwe.
Il nous fait l'honneur de sa présence.
He has honored this occasion, he has graced this occasion, and he will officially open this day. Thank you. The ambience, I will reach every protocol and call you dear brothers and sisters, and I would like to I will comply with I will do this traditional, in fact this ceremony sort of in a local language. I salute all the chiefs, the priestess and priestesses, and I pray that you open the way for me to take the floor. Thank you, because we're talking about tradition to uphold our African cultures and Afro-descendant cultures. I want to ask for the authorization of all great masters that are here. I want to put myself under the blessings of all the entities that we have invited today to talk about tradition. In a while, the moderator wanted to apologize, but I told him when we're talking about our traditions, we are not masters of the time. One of the virtues we need to learn when we're talking about tradition. That is patience. As long as the spiritual forces do not allow us to move on or to act, nothing can be done. Right now, we wouldn't have had these fervor, these ambience, everything had gone as planned. It tells you that there is a time for everything, and that time has come so that we can share the outcome of our reflections with the hope that they will lead us in action. And I must say that at this time that we're opening this cultural day of the 9th Pan-African Congress, I want to first of all express our gratitude to all the delegations, to artists, to cultural communities, and also to planning teams, and wish all of you a warm welcome to this session that is dedicated to the celebration but also to the projection of our common heritage that will lay the foundation for all the discussions during the day, the symbolic strength we have seen, artistic expressions that we have just discovered and that we are going to discover shortly in the open space of this Palais des Congrès. This day is starting on a clear conviction. Culture is not a supplement, is not an accessory, but it is central, as was said at the beginning of this Congress by the President of the Council. It's an instrument for bringing together the entire African family and Afro-descendants, and also the reconquest of our narrative. At this stage, our responsibility is to make sure that this day does not remain just a moment. It must serve as a starting point. That is why I want to suggest that we reflect together about a number of concrete actions that will be inspired by the orientations that have been suggested by His Excellency Mr. Esosinam Nyasibe, President of the Council of Togo. As part of his requirements, I suggest that we put in place what we call the Lomé initiative for African cultural cooperation that will function based on basic ideas. Number one, it will be a framework for cooperation between ministers in charge of culture, tourism, in order to facilitate co-production of tours, residences, and exchanges and expertise. Secondly, an annual calendar of events and professional markets built on art, audiovisual, music, heritage, and design in order to offer unanticipated visibility to the stakeholders of culture and art. And then this governance will require that we make our voices heard in institutions. And in that regard, I want to suggest that we set up a Pan-African working group that will also be made up of Afro-descendants on cultural diplomacy in order to harmonize our common positions on key topics, mainly the ethical circulation, the ethical movement of art works, restitution policies, and the construction of museums, and the protection of our heritage. Concerning this component of multilateralism, the second suggestion is to organize regular meetings of African and the diaspora within major world cultural settings so that the voice of Africa could be better structured, better coordinated, and better heard and more influential. It means that we put together networks of Africa and the diasporas of Africa to structure cultural economy and heritage tourism. The President of the Council recalled it. Our development would first of all come from ourselves on the field of culture and tourism, and that requires that we organize a value chain and secure trade and attract investment. In that vein, I want to suggest, number one, that we set up an office, a public-private framework, according to the available framework, that we will have. That office will support projects. It will also means laying emphasis on training, structuring, exhorting, managing the rights and access to markets, and that will lead to the dynamics of tourism. It will be built on heritage routes, cultural construction and partnership with the diaspora. The objective is very clear, that is, transform our shared memory into educative and touristic entrepreneurship. Africa and the diaspora, we have the responsibility to turn all that we are into the engine of our development. We need to emphasize on these three strengths, and here our action must be straightforward and measurable. First of all, a program for residents that will be supported by training programs in order to promote the co-production and the emergence of common programs. And secondly, we need to put in place a setup for the promotion of young artists, to promote artistic incubation, digital art, design, event organization, with technical support on the management of these projects, their marketing. It will also be a matter of dissemination and also partnerships. We have to be in partnership. We have to produce, archive, and disseminate our own tale. In that regard, the President of the Council also laid down a decisive principle. No power can be asserted by allowing other people tell their tale. In the same vein of what he suggested and his observation, I want to suggest, number one, a program for the digitalization and the value addition of our heritage in order to modernize access and promote research, transmission. And in the veins of these suggestions, we need a strategy that will support movie production, short documentary production, itinerary production of digital and educative content, so that Africa and the diaspora can meet and tell their own story from their own angle. It's a framework for ethical digitalization applied to culture. That framework will be in place to protect our works, our languages, and our immaterial heritage, so that our story will not be captured, distorted, and monetized behind our back. These may not solve all our problems, but they have the virtue They are concrete, they are achievable, and they are cumulative, and they are the expression of our transformation of our vision into results. I want to wish that as we proceed with this cultural day, that we will agree on a simple principle. Our culture must not only be celebrated, it must be organized, protected, funded, and projected. It is at that cost alone that it will become fully one of the engines of African sovereignty, the sovereignty of Afro-descendants, of African unity, and of our influence in the world. At the beginning of this cultural day, I want to express a wish. I am rather persuaded that Lomé will, according to the opening words, a place where Africa will speak by itself, decide by itself, and build by itself. I want to thank you for your attention, with the persuasion that the resolutions will be forces of action, forces for movement. Long live culture, long live the diaspora, long live Africa. This is the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Art of Togo. I want us to give him an ovation. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your commitment and for these words. Thank you once again for being here with us for the celebration of this fundamental day that is dedicated to our culture, our tradition, our shared memory as Africans and Afro-descendants. Thank you very much, Minister of Art and Culture of Togo. I want to salute at this time the invited people invited, the countries invited. It is Colombia, you know it. Several people of African descendants are on the coast of the Pacific and the Caribbeans. Welcome here to Togo. Welcome, and thank you to stand alongside Togo for the celebration of this 9th Pan-African Congress. We will look up to another country where the heart of Africa is beating high, and that is Cuba. We have the honor to welcome on this podium of the Palais de Congrès of Lomé, the counselor, the advisor to the Minister of Tourism, Mr. Omar Valino. Mr. Omar Valino. He is the director of the National Library of Cuba, dedicated to culture.
Muy buenos días. Muchas gracias. Le leo un breve mensaje. Hermanos y hermanas africanos, abrazos les traigo desde Cuba a la Madre África, reunida simbólicamente en este estratégico Congreso Panafricano. Continente madre con literalidad. Como sabemos por los estudios genéticos, aquí está el ADN mitocondrial, el marcador único del origen materno. Nuestra raíz africana en medio del Caribe nos ha hecho también el pueblo que somos. A ella debemos buena parte de la resistencia, el coraje, la inteligencia, la belleza y la alegría de cubanas y cubanos. Lo expresan dos ejemplos artísticos que han alcanzado especial relieve en estos días. En el Museo de Arte Moderno de New York, el célebre MoMA se exhibe la exposición antológica del gran pintor cubano Wilfredo Lang y la declaratoria por la UNESCO del son cubano como patrimonio cultural inmaterial de la humanidad, ese género musical que nos define.
This musical type of music, this musical genre that brings us together, I stand as ambassador to the Minister Ambassador in Togo in Benin. I talked with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Culture. And particularly, we want to thank Togo for this invitation, and we want to thank you for being here through Minister Robert Dorsey.
Aquel foro, como este, discute problemas primordiales para el desarrollo integral de todas nuestras naciones. En Cuba.
So we're talking about what matters for the development of our nations. We have a program against racism and racial discrimination in Cuba, and that is the fight we have to carry on for cultural decolonization. We must not give up on the universality of culture. We have to watch and see to the survival of culture, our practices that are threatened by narratives that are concentrated on other spheres and which distort our histories. We to continue fighting together to take up this challenge. I want to invite you for the 3 activities that we plan to hold within this year to celebrate the centenary of Fidel Castro in solidarity with Africa and implemented in other places for independence and education. These events represent the 3rd international workshop against racism, discriminations that has been organized by the University of Matanzas for March 2026, the 46th activity of Carib that will be organizing in June 2026, during which we will organize the International Forum of the Caribbeans and as a center of the international diaspora. In Cuba 2026, the thought against racism that will go on. We would invite you so that we will continue to lift the name of Africa, Africa that is at the center of the universe. Thank you, Director of the National Library of Cuba, that has been
un artiste pluridimensionnel qui va sur cette scène.
He is a comedian, a singer, author, a great figure in Pan-Africanism. Mariko Kande, we Blaise Ali by
Point. Ne le Wale. Nagadef. Kasumei. Satofe. Kaoufe. C'est ainsi que je vous salue en
now I just greeted you in a way Wolof, and many other dialects. My name is Frank. My grandfather was Abulu and Babel, and I'm also descendant of Guru Mendy. He was a Senegalese fighter. I've grown up in France, Normandy. I am French, we can say that, because African fighters were not invited to parade on the day of liberation. There's still something going on in the denial. For years now, I've come, but I'm still living the discrimination because I'm a black. I need to recalibrate myself. I'm called a bastard. I learn how to read a history book in order to snatch my own dignity to be the person I want to be. I discover that I was quite peculiar, my Africanity, not by the ways it should seem logical, but by the Caribbeans. I am Franco-Senegalese, and I hate the disguise my colleagues look at me with. I can't say I'm a Senegalese because I don't speak the language, and I'm neither a French citizen because I don't have the color of skin. Claudicia, coming from there, he used to claim where he is from and boast about it. We have meetings, gatherings, reading, Kano, Césaire, Condé. All these Caribbean figures remind me my origin in Guyana, Martinique. All those traditions that I inhaled in Senegal just reminded me that I'm not there yet. My name is not just written in the literature. Marie is not just in the books of literature. I know her, and she used to call me my son. I tempted to behave as a good son and to learn in silence from a woman with a conscience that goes through the continent with old tongues, with that due respect we have to women. Marie Condé is not just a writer. She was a force, a still force that brings you to bring out the best of yourself, and she bears the voice of people. She has given to Caribbeans, to Africa, to the diaspora, the memories, the Renaissance, and her piece of art has been translated, and she traveled beyond Francophonie, and she has brought literature to many other horizons. Today, I'm speaking of her with pride because her light still shines in me. With pain, she received many prizes, distinctions, awards, but what she has done was beyond prizes and trophies. She has opened doors for the future. She has written history, and she used literature as matrix of truth. And she's always without makeup, but with a strong look. I'm talking about a woman that has moved a whole continent with her words. I'm talking about a continent, about a literature, a mother, a woman without carrying my own voice. Once these books will be open, Marie Condé, you will be able to see what she has never been able to say. Aimé Césaire was not just a monument of literature, that was a breath going through people. I was in France the day of his burial. The whole city was breathless. Time ceased. There was that strange breeze all over the city. We felt his spirit going through the cities, going through the looks, and people were very sad and afraid. Césaire was not just the father of negritude, he was a worker of memory, someone who knows that words can become weapons and can shape continent. That's where Maurice Condé met him, because one day the young lady opened the book and she started narrating her own story. A story that was an identity revelation and opening the door towards Africa. I'm coming from Havre. Few days ago, Edouard Philippe, former Prime Minister, was saying colonization was not a crime. Havre, a former port for slavery trade. I'm talking with a solid memory of my grandfather, my great-grandfather. And also a salute to all those researchers going through history. Colonization was a crime, not because we are angry, but because it was the fact. Historians, they wrote about it, and people have lived it in their blood. I'm not talking just to kindle anger in someone. I'm talking because that was the reality. How can we get to a future when we deny the blood that people has shed? I'm talking so that we can keep history strong. Colonization was root of so many crimes by Maurice Condé. We have statistics, fact, and we have long ways. They have built railways. I'm talking about those thousands of men that were snatched from their countries, Togo, their home countries. As I'm talking, they used to dig Abidjan's port. I'm talking about thousands of the men, women that have to dance by force, and they were snatched away from their own wisdom, from their light. Thousands of men that were put to fear the inferiority complex, shame, despair. I don't know exactly how I can describe how what this book has produced in me. For my birthday, a young friend of mine, Françoise, has offered me this little book, Speech on Colonialism, edited in Présence Africaine, 1933. We have Aimé Césaire as author. My life has changed. I am colonized. I used to repeat to myself, I lost my identity. France was not on my hometown, my metropole. My people has suffered. It was a victim. I must make sure that I ease their pain. The speech on colonialism has become my Bible, my go-to book. And because of him, I'm now sympathizing for Africa. I spent 12 years in turbulence, and I only know few. My sister's husband was in jail for an imaginary conspiracy. I myself was in jail because I had a passport from Guinea and I'd have been evacuated from Ghana, country of Kwame Nkrumah. As to understand what happened around me, I plunged myself into reading, years of reading, and I have another author with their light or brilliant ideas. After that turbulence, what can I say today? I am an old man running away from cities, and I would like to hide myself in cool places. However, I have to be there for the birth of my great-grandchild. If colonization is the root of so many crimes, I must also target those regimes under the sun of independence, let's go to another writer, the Ivorian writer Amadou Kourouma. There are so many in numbers leaders left their people in ignorance, thirsty and victim of all disorders or troubles. The flux of migrants going toward Europe is heartbreaking. My small Guadeloupe, not knowing independence, in 1946, they changed their name and it becomes an overseas department, the French overseas department. Unfortunately, they are not feeling better. What can we conclude? We need to conclude. We don't need a conclusion. We need a dream. Let's imagine that the history of the world is not at the end. People are predicting death of Western world. One day, the earth will be round and all humans will come together and consider one another as friends and sisters, brothers. But they will no more say, this is from another religion, or I hate him because of the color of his skin, or because of any other prejudice. The time will come, we must believe in our heart. Is Maurice sleeping? No, she's not. Thank you, Philippe Mamblé, by rapper, a singer. Thank you for that vibrant intervention, a figure of Pan-Africanism. A round of applause for him, please. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this beautiful time we are having together. And thank you, sir, for that homage or salute to Maurice Condé. We are now going to give the floor to the representative of the Minister of Culture in Brazil, head of Palais Foundation, the first institution in Latin America dedicated to conservation, promotion of Afro-descent culture. A round of applause for Mr. Santos. Thank you. Once again, we pay particular tribute to Afro-descent community present here for the 9th Pan-African Congress. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here. I need to commend the Minister of Culture in Togo, Mr. Isaac. Thank you. I would like to commend African Union for sending us an invite. We, Brazilians. Warm greetings from the Minister of Culture in Brazil. We are so proud to be part of this Congress. Brazil is that country that has welcomed more Africans than, so it's a nation of Afro descent. 103 million Africans. We are major part of African diaspora. Government has made public provisions for reparation, inclusion, and development of that population. Brazil needs and must set laws for reparation for Afro descent, as well as international standards collaborating with African Union to support development not only for Afro-Brazilians or Afro-descent, but all Afro-descent all over the world. One of them is including the Brazilian language as a permanent language in African Union. Not only the Brazilian Portuguese, but from Cabo Verde, Sao Tome, and Angola. Next thing we intend to do is the national cooperation. Brazilians and Afro-descent outside the country don't need to travel or to transit through Europe before coming to Africa. Number 3, we will have an Afro or Pan-African university in Africa. We are going to have that in the northeast of Brazil and make sure we include this in education. It's also important that we start practicing each other year. We have an artistic and cultural gathering so we can work on the interest of religious freedom. Religions in Africa are violated every single day by those leading our countries. In conclusion, I must say that it's important we institutionalize a center or an institution liaising with African Union so that we can have a multilateral collaboration. Without that, Afro-descent have no development. So if we don't include African countries, Caribbeans, South America, Latin America, and all Afro-descent people, they will be left behind in development. We know that we have the major part of Afro-descent people on the planet. We must also make sure we fight against the genocide of Black people. We are free to participate, and that responsibility is incumbent on us to halt racism. Racism is a permanent pathology. We Afro-descent, we know what it is. We want to have a national cultural mission in Brazil, and the government is taking necessary measures to support us. This will take into account repression. We must also make sure that this is a strong or robust measure, and this will be part of institutionalization of African Union in Brazil, and this must be done as early as possible. Support Africa for its own development. Africa is also called to help us to develop African diaspora. Above all, we must have faith, have the necessary energy, creativity, cultural one, and share our diverse experiences. The Black Brazilian movement we can learn not to impose what we have learned outside. We are here to learn, to listen. And based on whatever we have here, change our lives. The time has passed for us to still be oppressed. we must come together and make sure that humanity is making headways. The whole humanity is awaiting us. We are the only one left behind. Mexicans, Afro-descent, Brazilians, Americans, and Afro-descent from all the planet. We are the only one who can do it. I'm proud to be here with the delegation, civil society. I can say that I'm representing the Brazilian government. We will come back. This is our land. This is our own country. Thank you, sir.
It is a committed man who has been working for long years to preserve Afro-descendant cultures in Brazil. He is the one. I don't know if you remember the clip of Michael Jackson. He brought Michael Jackson to Brazil to do a clip with Afro-descendants, Mr. Jorge Santos Rodriguez.
Territoire voisin du Brésil, une terre de destins croisés aux identités plurielles et profondément africaines, c'est la Guyane. Le député de la Guyane, David Riemann, sera avec nous sur cette scène dans quelques instants. Le temps de vous faire découvrir ou redécouvrir la Guyane à travers ces quelques images.
We are discovering Guyana through the music.
Les peuples de...
The peoples of Guyana, a land of mixture. As I said, we welcome the MP from Guyana. And immediately after his remark, you will have the possibility to ask him a few questions. Good morning, everyone. Your Excellency, Mr. Minister, Senor Rodriguez, bon dia. Good morning to all of you. People of Togo gathered here to welcome us during this 9th Congress. I'm honored by this invitation to express myself and explain to you a bit what Guyana is. I am an MP from Guyana, but I am a French MP for the Republic of France, that Guyana as a territory called overseas in Southern America. My video has shown you our realities, our territory where we consider the mixture of cultures. We have the indigenous people, the Amerindians, the Creoles that are from Africa and Bushnenge people who maintain their authenticity, their roots, their African roots. This distribution is in line with history. Before the African slaves were deported by the colonizers, we have the indigenous people. We have 6 nations. Those people have been reduced to minority, the indigenous people. At the end of slavery, French made a choice. Slaves were still in the plantations, they were freed, and they were integrated to become French citizens. The slaves that run away from the plantations were excluded from the French citizenship, as well as the indigenous people who were fighting, they were excluded from the French citizenship. The African descendants are in majority the Creoles, the other one who took over political power. If I tell you all this reality is because this will have effect on our territories till date. Given that slaves that fled from plantations, they joined the indigenous people, it's early in 1960 that they were granted the French citizenship and the French nationality. And that reality has divided us in Guyana. We are still mending our wounds because we have not yet faced that common and painful history. It is worth recalling that when we're talking about culture, history, and knowledge, that is what determines our identity. We are quite a number across the world, and coming from Guyana, who have been deprived. I only knew my story when I came to the secondary school, when I did my own research. I was not taught my history through the French schools. Rather, they tried to erase my history. The first the former Prime Minister of France, Edouard Philippe, said that colonization is not a crime. Through this space that I am given, I want to reply back to him, yeah, Mr. Philippe, colonization was a crime against humanity. When you deport by force men, women, children, you uproot them from their place of birth and you deport them as goods, it is a crime against humanity. Regrettably, across the world, the black man, the black woman continue to suffer. Just because we're black, that is the heritage, that is as a result of slavery and colonization. But we should not be limited. It should be our fuel and energy for our determination to put forth who we are, what we represent, and for that reason to be true ambassadors of who we are. We must take ownership of our history, our culture, our know-how, and make it known to the world. Africa, as far as I'm concerned, looking at what the world tells us, looking at how geopolitical relations are evolving, Africa must reconquer its place of before. Africa is the greatest continent in the world. Alone, Africa represents 50% of the world wealth. Africa has the wealth that is most envied in the world, the youth of Africa. All Africa lacks today is to unite and face challenges together. I want to advocate today, during this 9th Pan-African Congress, that Africa will recover its grandeur, that Afro-descendants may get to know everything that has to do with their history, their wealth. As long as we will not do it, and mindset will not move on. To conclude, I would like to salute a great woman from Guyana that the French history has erased. Her name is Eugénie Teleboy. Eugénie Teleboy, who was this woman? She was a teacher from Guyana. He was married to Governor Felix Eboué. And when Felix Eboué was called by General de Gaulle to go and fight Nazi Germany, they forgot to tell us the role played by his wife. She was a nurse. They forgot the role she played. At the end of the war, she was the first woman to join the French Parliament, the first black woman to join the French Parliament after the Second World War. She fought her whole life, trusting General de Gaulle. The end, for those who have seen it, it was not up to who she was, a woman from Guyana, the wife of a governor working for France. It is important for me to recall that everywhere in the world there are men and women from this beautiful continent that is Africa that have fought for the freedom of this world and who, as much, were forgotten. It is important to recall that we need to know our story, our history, and disseminate it as we can. I wish a successful, I wish with a lot of hope to this 9th Congress, I wish that Africa would become, or would come back again, will become again that great land, that motherland, that feeder land for her daughters. Thank you. Could you give him a hand? Thank you for this recall, this important recall. We must not forget our sons and daughters. Our sons and daughters must not forget their continent. We are going to put a few questions to him, as I announced before he came. If you have any question to put to him, just raise your hand. One of the hostesses will bring you a microphone so you can ask your question. While we're waiting for the first question, MP Riman, I want to hear from you. What is your feeling seeing yourself here in Lomé for this 9th Pan-African Congress? I must say this is the first time that I'm in Togo. And I want to thank you for this warm welcome. Africa is a land of warm welcome, and I was warmly welcomed by the Togolese men and women when I got to this country. In the world elsewhere, we are feared because we are black, but any time you come to this continent as a black man, it shows you're welcome, and it tells the world that we are human. We are humans, and we're welcome in Africa, despite anything that is going on. You were sitting beside Madame Francia Elena Marquez Villain, the Vice President of Colombia, the invited country who has graced this 9th Pan-African Congress with her presence. Do we have any question for Mr. Reman? There's a hand over there. I just want to, I'm happy to be here at the 9th Pan-African Congress in Lomé. Kindly stand up and put your question. My name is Bless Chikaya, at the Court of the African Court of Rights and the Rights of People. I am happy to know about the diversity of people present in Guyana. I'd like to know why, Mr. MP, you didn't mention the Sarmaka people. I'd like to know more. as you were mentioning, the people of Guyana, the people that we saw in the video before the MP took the floor. I didn't mention the Saramaka, but I spoke about the Bushnenke. Bushnanga cover 3 people that Bushnenke. We had the Saramaka, the Abonia Luku, the Juka, the Pamaka. There are 6 in total. If I see one, I have to mention all 6. I talked about the Bushnenge peoples. Thank you very much for your question. We have another question. Good morning, madam. Thank you for joining us. Kindly introduce yourself and ask your question. My name is Akatia Souza, and I come from Pesiperembonku, and I live within Sao Paulo, São Paulo, in the city of Jaum, where we have set up a collective of the black women of Jaum. I'm a professor. I coordinate a school with about 600 students, 63 teachers. I think that education is the way to go, the tool of revolution. In Brazil, we have 2 laws, a directive that tells us that the way to go is education. The law says that it's compulsory to teach culture and the languages of Brazil, and that was voted in 2003 and has been implemented. And this law allows us to teach all our values to our children. And there's a law that has made it binding to teach indigenous history of the people, in the history of indigenous people of Brazil. And while, as I am here, it's a lot of emotion. I will not go back to Brazil as the same. I'll go back to Brazil with more strength, with more power. And I would like to know the suggestion that you have for the setting up of measures of exchange to reinforce of Pan-Africanism oriented, Pan-Africanism based education. That's a good question, because Guyana does not decide alone of the trajectory of education of our people. That's why we, the elected of Guyana, we want to go towards a better autonomy so that we can take care of education that will be the basis to allow our children to relearn who they are, their history, their culture, and their know-how. And what does that go through? It goes through the mother tongue. Today we have several children that come to our school, the French schools. They don't speak the French language. When I talk about mother tongue, Amerindians and Creole, I want to salute our friend from the Republic of Haiti. There's a huge Haitian community. When they come to Guyana, they speak Creole. So when you have to learn French, putting aside your mother tongue, lots of children, many children are failing in their education. So we want to make sure that children have the possibility to better adapt to the learning of French. But all the history, the education, we need to have a free hand so that we can implement that directly. That is why we have made that choice as Guyana. Thank you, MP Rehman. We will take the last question from the Minister of Culture and Tourism of Togo. Mine is not a question, but I want to support what the MP said. The principle in France is assimilation. For you to be French, you must get rid of your identity. In France, there is no integration. Communities do not exist. To be a French person, you must live like a French person. You forget about your culture. To become French, you must be assimilated all the way to the deepest of your identity. That is what it is. So far, the only national languages that we teach in schools is French, or regional languages do not exist in France. And that calls for a thinking, which is that because French has colonized many of our countries, in contrary to what the British did, colonialism was the destructuring of the African personality. Even religions are destroyed. That's why they call our religions paganism or animism, whereas we have our way of relating through our religions. Thank you. Thank you, Minister Chakpi, for this enlightened contribution. Thank you, Minister. I would like to, through your enlightening words, I must say that the fight is ongoing. There are territories like the Bretagne in France. There are also specific land when we're talking about the territories, the overseas territories of France. The practice is different. So I am an MP within the nation. So we are trying to put forth that we can be different and be together. So as long as you don't accept it, I keep fighting. Thank you for your fight. We're going to take the last question from the audience. Thank you. I want to ask a question which might be a conflicting question. And when I see the MP, I could have met him here in Lomé, in Yokonakwe. I could have met him in the market of Dantokpa in Cotonou. I can't even tell that you're coming from Guyana. It tells me what Kwame Nkrumah was saying. When I look at Africa, despite our differences, the different way of dressing, the Lusophone, the Francophone, when I look, I only see Africans. And that's exactly what I see in you. Therefore, the question that I want to put to all here is that from time to time, our brothers from overseas, they say that fundamentally deportation of Africans from here to those remote lands was due to Africans. It was by our fault. Nowhere during the 9th Pan-African Congress, nowhere have we mentioned this. Reading through history, I understood that back in our country, we had our kings. Those kings were depossessed and other kings were put in place. It is not we who brought in the notion of Negro kings. So they replaced our kings by other people, other kings that were given the instructions to do the dirty jobs. I want to seize this opportunity to say that we're lagging behind in this discussion with our brothers from overseas, between our brothers from the Caribbean. We need to organize a meeting, an encounter to try and clear that contention, that conflict. It is the same people who organize the whole show. They are trying to bring a conflict between ourselves, and we are not the authors of what they are telling us we are.
Pour cette question.
Thank you so much for that important question. You must understand something. As long as we ignore our history, we are tempted to believe any other history that we are told. So what brings us together is that in this new world, there is always a relay for dominant powers. No matter the countries, no matter the continent, there is always a relay for dominant power. If not, people wouldn't be suffering now. I'm not trying to seduce ourselves whether we are African, American, Brazilians, Europeans. There will always be relay for dominant power, and the fight is the nature of a human being. Thank you. Thank you so much. The parliamentarian from Guyana, thank you so much. A round of applause for him. And thanks for your speech, your clear answers to all questions that were asked. And also thank you for your physical presence here in the Palais de Congrès in Lomé. Today being 11th of December, the day we have chosen for this historical moment to celebrate what binds us together, what is our culture, Afro-descent, our memory. December 11 is also the National Day for Tango in Argentina. Why are we talking about it? If tango is the soul of Buenos Aires. It's first and foremost a creation of Afro-descent.
Buenos Aires et Montevideo, fin du 19e siècle. Le tango n'est pas né dans les salons, mais dans les ports, les conventillos et les cabarets. C'est une musique de mélange. L'Afrique.
It's a mixture of music from Africa and Europe. The roots are from the slaves in Cuba. Tango Criollo is the raw expression of popular classes from Creole and Afro-Argentinos. This is a rhythm of poverty, desire. The sound that is quite not appreciated by the elite. Before being the most known music in the world, it is the soul of Uruguay.
Vers 1910, le tango entre dans son âge de transformation, la Guardia Nueva. Le bandoneón devient le cœur du genre. C'est l'époque de la réappropriation culturelle. Exporté et adulé à Paris, le tango revient validé par l'Europe. Il est rapidement adopté par les classes aisées. Ce succès coïncide avec un phénomène de blanchiment. Les compositeurs et interprètes blancs prennent le dessus. Le genre s'éloigne de ses racines afro-créoles et s'installe dans la mélancolie européenne. Le tango se fige, devient une œuvre d'art nationale, un chef-d'œuvre, mais dont les véritables initiateurs ont été effacés de l'histoire.
Le tango qui...
Tango, as you discovered through the video, is first and foremost an Afro-descent creation, just as any other creation from Afro-descent which has been spoiled from their creators. The rock and roll, for instance, and our own creation is a creation of our own culture in Africa. Now it's time to take you back in 1937, where the fascists in Italy from Mussolini have put sanctions because of the aggression in Ethiopia. A year later, Haile Selassie said this.
Speaker on the list, His Majesty Negus Haile Selassie.
He did so with a dignity that has become a legend.
Monsieur le Président, Monsieur le...
The jeers of fascists in the gallery did not stop him. I am here to claim justice, he said. What reply shall I take back to my people? There was no answer, and there could be none. The League was dead. So, said the Emperor, it is us today. It will be you tomorrow.
Haile Selassie sifflait.
Haile Selassie was suffering as he defended the dignity of his people, Ethiopia. And always in history, December 11, 1958 was the proclamation of the Republic of High Volta. We are now going to give the floor to the chair of Togo Jazz. He's with us this morning, Mr. Mautoji. A round of applause for him, please.
Monsieur Mautoji,
Mr. Mautoji, the president of Togo Jazz, he's going to take us on realities in music. My elders, all due respect, authorities here present, I greet you. It's my pleasure or honor to be here to talk about culture and about music. The Minister of Culture, Mr. Isaac Chakwe, earlier presented the concrete facts and approaches of solutions so that our culture, African music can make headway. I think all this is part of cultural policies. Nothing is new to you. In Africa, we are 54 countries, but only 10 have a tangible cultural policy enforceable. What is a cultural policy? It's just strategies that are developed to defend our heritage, our values, our custom. Do you think that policy is enshrined in our countries? Knowing that the cultural policies is first and foremost a matter of territoriality, that Africanity, Pan-Africanism is first and foremost our art, our culture. It's obvious that we must work hard so that our culture, our art must be sustained by our countries so that we can talk about Pan-Africanism. It's also obvious that the former minister in charge of culture, as he said in his speech, African countries are called to show the force or the strength we have when we talk about culture. When I say culture, is first the art that we have. I can see in the room that we have voodoo priests and we always have a confusion with our culture. You are doing such a wonderful work, all the priests. You must do better. Make sure that all Africa recognize our divinities. That you make sure that our divinities are recognized and that we stop tagging them as Satan. Let me go beyond that. In our festival, resources are not made available so that during a classical music or African music festival, we can display whatever we want. And the music industry today is just promoting urban music. And this is downplaying our own music all over Africa. Today we are talking about Afrobeat. So where does Afrobeat comes from? Is it Afrobeat from Fela Kuti a few years ago? No. When I see someone like King Messon, Rokia Traoré, Afia Mala doing that music, I can say now they are playing jazz. As jazz is defined as the meeting or the various musics from Africa and European or Western tools. So where is jazz from? So we are told jazz is from the United States. Okay, even if a child, if a lady bears a child and you don't know your father, will you say that the child is not yours as a lady? No. So Africa has given birth to jazz. Jazz is our own product. So I urge all authorities to support events like this so that our own arts, our own music, our own custom can go beyond borders and be seen as such. Every so often, when we invite artists, they are always from the world music. We don't have category for African music. It's just because we as Africans, we really don't play that music. We don't make visibility for it. Angelique Kidjo is known with so many Grammy awards, but she is not known with what she's bringing from Benin, but from Europe. Peter Solo is going through the whole world, but he is promoting the values of Vodous. The Nana Bands of Togo that we know from all over Africa and in Europe, they are defending the Vodou values and that music that we can see in our own shrines. King Messon is doing such a wonderful job in mixing his own traditional songs from the shrines with a modern or contemporary instrument so that it can be sung by everyone. Same for Fatmata Diawara, Rukia Traoré. They are all fetching from their culture so that African culture can transcend African borders. I, therefore, invite you to focus on African music in our cultural event. Just as Mr. Isaac Jagbe said, we make sure we have necessary measures. So, African culture, not Togolese music only, but African music can be international. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Endless thanks to you, sir, for your contribution to jazz and African culture. To this specific day we have devoted to African culture, in the afternoon, in this same room, we have many contributions. We will see all our sons and daughters fighting for African culture. This year is the year we celebrate the centenary of his birth, the birth of Pan-Africanism. We are now going to go to the voodoo panel. The panel is already set. I will be giving the floor to the moderator. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to greet you with all humility, to greet our ancestors who have seen us sound and safe all the way here. We shouldn't lose sight of that. Those who are deported, who have come all the way from Atlantic, I am from the University of Rio de Janeiro. I was initiated 45 years ago in a shrine in Salvador de Bahia. I am Babalao. I'm a Babalao, initiated in Nigeria. I often go there for training. I'm also an activist against religious intolerance. It's my pleasure to be part of the Afro-Brazilian delegation fighting against religious intolerance and also fighting for safeguarding human rights. The dialogue with Africans is quite interesting. When we talk about African diaspora, we have to show it not only culturally, but it must be a political alliance. Tradition of Brazil and diaspora. So we must make sure that this is a dialogue, not only a festival, not only a gathering or reunion to talk about culture, but we must also talk about religious fundamentalism. So we must make sure that bridges, alliances are made toward preserving our culture so that we can overcome the threats we are having on our culture in Brazil. People are being killed, our houses are being burned with children inside. So horrible, so many religious thinking. We also know that there are churches in Africa, in Brazil, but in Brazil we are living religious intolerance. We need to fight together. This being said, I'm going to invite some actors or some panelists so that we can brainstorm together. Aimé Jean Filtre, the PhD, History, Theology. You are invited to share your experience with us.
A doutora Mariana Gini, vice-diretora executiva do CEAP.
Dr. Mariana Gil, Executive Secretary of CEL, National Centre for Culture, National Cycle for Culture in Brazil. We also have Asu Kosi, a speaker. Mr. Asu Kosi, is he around? 10 minutes for your intervention. And after that, we go to question and answers. So let us start with a measure. You have 10 minutes. It's my honor to be here this morning. It's my honor to be here this morning. My name is Jean-Fils Aimé. It's my pleasure to say that I'm an Haitian African. So I am an African with a Haitian part. So a big salute to my compatriot. It's an extension of Africa. Haiti is an extension of Africa in the Caribbean. Just as our Brazilian speaker said, my name is Jean-Fils Aimé. I had my first PhD on Vodou. My personal history is not that interesting because I used to be a pastor who has grown up in a varied environment. My father is a voodooist, and my great-grandmother is half Catholic, half voodoo worshipper, and my mother is a Catholic. So I was influenced by my mother until I became a pastor. I have a bachelor degree in theology. I was getting ready to have a doctorate or PhD in philosophy, and I fall in Heidegger. So one day I went to Haiti. First in Florida, I met someone with whom I was to travel to Haiti because the Presbyterian church to whom we belong wanted to build hospitals in Haiti. So we met at the airport in Miami. You know how it works when you come to meet someone. Good morning, what do you do in life? And I said, I'm so proud to meet you. I was to start my PhD on Heidegger. The white man looked at me and said, you always study white people. When exactly will you start studying yourself or black people? You know, I first had that pride, and all of a sudden, was off. And I went to the library and the bookshop, and I bought everything we had on Vodou. The Catholic I was, or the Presbyterian I was then, started disappearing for so many people from Haiti. We consider Vodou as a superstition. So, as part of that superstition, I said to myself, if I travel with all these books on Vodou to Canada without a glitch, I will start my PhD on Vodou. So we landed safely. Then I understand that, okay, Vodou is not evil. I went back to see my supervisor for dissertation or thesis. I said, I want to change the topic. So when I gave him the new topic, there was a specialist of Vodou being paid or recruited by NASA just to explore and to help them study everything that they have about Vodou. Then NASA already had some thesis on Vodou because they said to themselves, if they can only steal the practice of voodoo and the practice by which they can bring the dead back to life, then they can use the same for astronaut, and they can now succeed with the space trip. Then I was so fascinated and I started studying this. I have my PhD on voodoo, my first in 2003. And that was the most significant thing I have ever accomplished in my life. You know, I have studied my own culture and understood exactly how our colonizers, or the new colonizers, the former ones and the contemporary colonizers, continue making us afraid of our own culture so that they can keep control on us. I just wanted to share that part of my history or my story with you so that you understand where I'm coming from, so that you can have some epistemology, the conviction I have. I'm here to talk about culture. So we need to start with a definition as simple as possible. What is culture then? Culture is my own way of living in this world. Culture is not only my own vision of the world, my understanding of spirituality. My culture is also my education, my schooling journey, my culture, and that's what I want to talk about this morning. I first need to understand how I manage my space, how I manage the city, what we call politics. There is a myth according to which secularism should be the way we manage our world without spirituality. There's no politics without spirituality, none. And those countries that pretend to be secular countries or states, or to split spirituality from politics, they are just misleading us. I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about spirituality. If only you are aware of what happened in Britain lately, there was a Britanno-Indian who was appointed by his own party as prime minister. And one of the first gestures he made before entering the office was to give an offering to his own gods or divinities. He put rice, he made some rituals before entering his office, and nobody blamed him or blamed his that behavior, and nobody said what he did was bad. So we must understand that politics is the headquarters of spirituality, and any power comes from the gods or divinities. So we must now integrate or mainstream that spirituality in our various decisions. There is another exoteric aspect that we tend to forget, which is only for the initiates. You do know that when someone is appointed or crowned king or queen in Britain, they always go through rituals. They always have under words of their great grandfathers. So when a child of the king, a prince or princess, which is intended for the crown, during the baptism, child must wear the same robe or the same gown worn by the ancestors. We are the only people who are forbidden to mingle spirituality and politics, as if we could handle politics without spirituality. Our colonizers have succeeded in converting our culture into shame to us because we trusted them, because we have entrusted them with our own education system. We are the only people who can entrust to our own enemies our education system. So they have the ability to control the spirit of our own children, our young children. And years later, what do we have? The hatred, self-hatred. That's what we have. So I always invite participants, my audience, to do a little exercise. If you close your eyes and I ask you to imagine the beautiful against the ugly, the good versus the bad, you will see that immediately you have what you imagine as good resemble your colonizers. When I say good versus evil, you will see that good things will resemble your colonizers or our colonizers. And that's how it is. Why? It's just because we continue undercover, we continue perpetuating the fundamental traits of education, colonial education. Our schools, unfortunately, in conclusion, are not yet free from colonization. Our schools are still colonial schools because the archetypes that we are teaching our children are from the colonizers. My dear, we are all here at the 9th Pan-African Congress. Time has come for us to reconceive, redevelop African education and to redefine the objectives of that education. The objectives of Pan-African education, and that should be, how do we free ourselves from any archetype, any stereotype from the enemy? And we need to replace that with the fundamentals of our own beautiful culture. We are a very great people. We are happy. We are wonderful people. It's time for us to live our culture without any inferiority complex. Thank you. I will get back to you. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you so much. What a beautiful analysis. Dr. Maria Magé from Brazil. Good morning and thank you so much. Before I start, I think it's important we commend the Minister in charge of Tourism and Culture in Togo, Mr. Isaac, and also the President of Palmarès Foundation, representing Her Excellency Jean-Claude, and also the representative of the Brazilian community. It's my honor to be here. I'm so glad to see that we are all here. Let me start by saying good morning to all my elders. Grant me permission to speak. Today is the 11th December 2025 and is the 4th day of our Congress, the 9th Congress. I would like to ask permission from all the Afro descent and our ancestors who have come before us. They have given us this heritage we are working on. I would like to talk about birth, renaissance, and also all those figures working on our culture. We talk about transversality, religion, spirituality from Africa to Brazil. It's time for us to rethink our own cultural identity. I would like to borrow a minute from a saying from Joseph Kizabo, Burkina Faso, one of the first people thinking about the relevance to reformulate or to rewrite our own history. Without the religious presence in social space, maybe today we will be here thinking on how to promote actions, not to align just as Pan-Africanists, but as people, religions in Brazil, African religion, minority religions are being persecuted every single day because these are sharp expression or stark expressions of freedom, of our ancestral freedom. But we cannot stop talking about our origin. We have the Nango worshipping centers, all those shrines. For many of you, you don't know those practices, religious practices from Afro descent in Brazil, and you don't understand why we should fight for them. And today, we must recall that we have a voodoo practice. And we must say this during the Pan-Africanism. There are some people who worked on this, some black people who worked on this. But we must also understand that we will not be able to have a full solution today. When I think that we need to reconsider history, how do you imagine Haiti without voodoo? They would never have that revolution. And that is being made real on all the continent in Africa. I'm not talking about rebellion, but revolution. When you are outside the African continent, we propose actions for us to be free from colonial actions or domination. People think it's rebellion. It's not. It's rather revolution. With that, Haiti was able to be independent. Now, let me talk about Brazil. When we can talk about relations with African matrix. Yes, we all know today that the religious divergence is a reality. And we cannot fail to mention that African religions are being persecuted. We need to have our social, cultural, religious autonomy. Religions contribute to that freedom so that we won't end up in dictatorship. We must be able to name all the systems that are dominating us. We believe that such procedure will continue so we can safeguard our lives, our spiritual life. We can't think about spirituality without thinking about Pan-Africanism. All African people, all Pan-Africanists, all Afro-Brazilians, even if they are not directly involved in Pan-Africanism, we are all promoting Pan-Africanism with our own actions, unity, politics promotion, economic promotion, social promotion. We must understand that it's also important for us to reconsider our own history and we rewrite it. Joseph Kizabo worked hard. It said it's not possible to talk about politics or rewriting African history without our culture, our traditions. So culture and traditions are always together. Colonization, we all know that we must get rid of it, without forgetting that we must remain bound together. We must also ensure the protection of our cultural ancestral heritage. Initiatives that have promoted our religion in America, in Brazil, for instance, so that we restructure our own society and also get rid of the suffering we have been imposed. Again, Kizabo said we can think about rewriting African history without going back to ancestrality, without being reconnected to our past. I talked about Kizabo and Nascimento, but these people are intellectuals. And they helped us preserve our own life, our own history, with all the people that are supporting us today, here and outside. Let's make sure that we reconnect to our continent.
Bom, é.
See, this is a good path of thinking, and I think we have to understand the value of spirituality. First of all, I would like to salute the ministers that are here, the venerated priests and priestesses. I bow to you. I am deeply honored to take the floor in this 9th Pan-African Congress, which is reflecting on a very important topic, the role of cults and cultures and traditions in the blossoming of Africa and Afro-descendants. We're here to question what is our foundation, to reconsider the matrix that has generated our thinking system, and also think our social institutions, our art, and our vision of the world. That matrix is the African spirituality. And my statement is to show that this spirituality, in its essence, has the germs of a new Pan-Africanism that will bring together our people and reinforce our collective identity and open the way for a sustainable development. Understanding African spirituality is a system, not just a folklore, a folk tale. Souvent, we think tradition is just a folk tale or folk dances, but it is a set of a system of knowledge, philosophical approach to the world. A few examples: the principle of unity, meaning that everything is connected, both visible and invisible, humans, the nature, ancestors, the sacred nature of life. Everything carries energy, has a sense, and dignity, the role of memory, orality, and the balance as the ethic standard, what we call Mart. The voodoo itself as spirituality is always based on that search for harmony. In that regard, African spirituality is not a cult of the past. It is a framework of rationality and a technology of existence. And our brother was saying a while ago, of course there are no politics without spirituality. Secondly, spirituality, a collective identity, what we lost, what we need to restore. For centuries, our spiritualities have been devalued, interdicted, and diabolized. This identity is essential because it will come with some consequences. Our collective identity has been fragmented. We lost our moral and philosophical identity. The historical continuity has been interrupted. Yet we know that no project can succeed if we remain spiritually and culturally divided. The African collective identity must be rooted or must be rerouted in our traditional philosophies, because they determine or they tell who we are, how we live, how we create, and then how do we conceive anything human. Number 3, African spirituality as a foundation of an Pan-African humanism. We have to go beyond the simple claims of culture. The Pan-African humanism that I'm talking about, based on 3 axes: the humanism of relation, the African conception of relation, which is summed up in the famous saying, which is, I am because we are. And in that context, the individual is not crashed down by the community, but the individual blossoms in the community. Our spirituality is a living library for transmission of knowledge, the learning of symbols, the building, the construction of a common identity. We that are from the coasts we know that Fa is not just a geomancer, but it is is at the center of a whole lot of knowledge. Number 3, we have the humanism of the creation energy. African humanism is linked with art, dance, music, creation, and the beats. It stimulates individuals at the service of the collective interest, and that the master of cults, the custodians of our traditions, are not just there for imaginary. They are at the center. They are needed by a whole nation, a whole people in their move forward. I will talk about the role of African cults, African worship modes in the building of Africa. 3 major contributions. The African way of worship can contribute to social cohesion, community links, spiritual sovereignty, the reality of indigenous beliefs. And I will go to the major actions of Afro-descendants: repair the links, reinvent together. The Minister Cornelius Aida, who mentioned this, because we have a sort of a negative propaganda that has gone into the imaginary, into the conscious of the ones and the others, either from the continent or from the diaspora. We need to find the opportunity to sit together and think and shed light on everything so that everybody will understand that we can have a better cohesion in place. To go towards that Pan-African humanism, this is what I want to suggest in a few bullet points. Create an institution for research that will bring together worship leaders and philosophers and artists, integrate in our education curriculum, culture. And the MP who talked about that. We need to value the identity, build, improve relation between the continent and the diasporas, and give a central civil role to worship leaders in social mediation, promote an African framework that is supported by, I believe, to promote intergenerational sustainability. And then here, I'd like us to pay very close attention. I think it is indispensable and necessary to create a date for celebrating African traditions and Afro-descendant traditions. I have the feeling it seems for me to be indispensable to mobilize our attentions and efforts in establishing a very strong pillar of Africanism, a day where we will celebrate spirituality, traditions, and spiritualities of Africa. That day will be a strong a moment for remembrance, for reconnection, for gathering, for reconciliation, and of visibility for our common heritage. I even want to suggest that it would be in a weekend long. We don't think about celebration, because when we talk about celebrating spirituality, just a day will not be enough. If we take the example of Benin, finally it's no longer the 10th of January, which is sometime it occurs in the middle of a week. Now they have said the first Friday in January, so that it can cover at least 3 days, so that the previous day will be a day off, and then it allows the community to prepare their night watch to go into Friday. They do spiritual work on Saturday, and then on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We don't intend to go back to the past, but to reconnect our future with our roots. To conclude, African spirituality is not from the past, an old past. It is a resource, a force, a light that carries the principles of a humanism that is based on principles, memory, creativity, and solidarity. Thank you.
Perguntas.
We will start. We will open the debate and take questions.
Nós temos pouco tempo. Okay?
And kindly tell us who will be answering your question, who you want to put a question to. Anybody wants to ask a question? Kindly give him the microphone. Kindly be straightforward and concise. We have only 7 minutes to go. Be specific and concise so that we can all participate. Good morning, everybody. My name is Makwa Celine from Brazil. I'm from the Palais, and this morning I spoke with Elos Santos that I met here. As we met here, it redefines our memory. I didn't need to think too much to talk to you, that we've been here since this morning. And what we're doing, what we have seen here this morning, is what we do in Brazil to redefine memory. Our ancestors have put into us what we saw here. I couldn't fail to say it. When Professor was talking about the difference between spirituality and religion, I always say that secularity does not mean it allows citizens to have the right to pray or not to pray. What's happening today requires that the Catholic Church has taught how to use faith to put our bodies in slavery, and they did it in the name of God. And we couldn't imagine, we can't think Pan-Africanism if we don't place the responsibility if we don't treat Christianity as responsible of what happened. And that responsibility goes through peculiar values of responsibility and accountability. I want you to think about it. And then I want to ask another question. When we are talking about the new Pan-Africanism, what is the responsibility facing us when it comes to our spirituality? Think, for instance, that during the 21st century, there have been lots of changes across the world. How we that are working based on the concept of spirituality as the driving force of our survival, how are we going to work in the middle of this new concept of Pan-Africanism and have this integration and these new thoughts? Anybody wants to take the floor so that we can answer all questions in a go? As from the academia, been trained in the best schools in France, but I also want to say, as a descendant of this country, belonging to a lineage of major spiritual and religious masters, I want to express myself as a carrier of the political action. I can feel in your interventions that there's a lot of confusion between spirituality and religion. Religion is the way in which we establish our relationship with the transcendence. It's a set of belief systems, of values that help us celebrate God, and voodoo is defining the way some peoples want to intercede between humans and God. So if you have any challenge, if you are the heavier soul, if you're within a heavier soul clan and you have any problem, you ask the divinity to help you. So spirituality is when you give the meaning to things. Spirituality is not religion. And by the way, you must have observed that when the colonialists came, they made sure that there would be that forgetfulness of ourselves. And what? Professor, you said it, education is fundamental, but also the political education that is making sure that all our tradition would be valued, and that shame that we have of ourselves. Let's say you have been initiated in Fa, geomancia. For those who know Freemasonry, they know that Freemasonry has its initiation. The distinction between the two is that in one, you have practices of worship systems, or sometimes there are blood shedding. On the other side, you have the sense of the word and light, because it's the path towards the light. In the geomancia, African geomancia, what we put forth is the divinatory component, but in the geomancia, African geomancia, it is not the divinatory aspect. Here they teach you lessons of life. When you go to see the geomancia, the Fa, what they will tell you the answer in form of parables. They will never tell you yes or no. That's why in our traditions we say, listening to the voice of Fa or the geomancia knows how to interpret it, because there is a plurality, a multiplicity of meanings. When you ask one question can send you to several proverbs, and that is the reason why you need the initiation to understand. Now, to conclude, I want to say that to succeed in what we want to undertake, first of all, it will take time, and secondly, there is those who are in positions of responsibility must agree and know that we have our way of relating to God, we have our way of giving a meaning to life. We have a way in all our religions of belief is that you have to believe either in Voodoo Sapota or other traditions. It is this is an advocacy to people in power to make sure that our beliefs generically, that all our beliefs would be valued.
Tempo, mais uma que acabou o tempo. Não sou eu aqui, não é o tempo. Tem relógio ali, ó.
We will give the floor to one last person, because we have to continue. Let's give the floor to somebody very quickly. I wanted to draw our attention to something very important. During the presentations that were made, for those who used to pay attention to this type of reflection, they are on the right path. But what happens is that we're coming to a manual split in 10 bullet points that would explain what our traditions are made for. I'll take an example. 2 days ago, Professor Nyamsi and myself, we were on the university campus for a conference, and students were going in different directions, and at a point in time, we needed to make things practical. So I asked the audience, when somebody in our cultures, if anybody dies abroad in a remote place and you can't bring his entire body, what do you do? What do you know is the practice? We bring back the nails and the sample of his hair that we bury. This is something that we observe. We were distracted observers until we became fulfilled adults and we started making comparisons. It happened. I was thinking every time, my ancestors, I bow to you. I am even sorry. I regret that I am not born to a priestess or priestesses, to a priestess or priest. You may agree with me that modern science has been able to establish recently that to catch a criminal, you only need on the crime scene, if you're able to see the nail or sample of the hair, it's only now that they know that you can catch anybody through his DNA when you're able to get his nails and hair. And this our ancestors have been doing over millennia. So a lot that was being done traditionally has enlightened the modernity. So I want to urge us to determine, those who are into the practice of our worships, I want us to agree on a number of bullet points. When you do an outdooring of a child or a naming of the child, the 6th day or whatever, the 7th day, 8th day, you outdoor the child. We've been told that when Jesus was born or where he was about to be born, the Magi were watching the sky. And when you compare that to what is done in our cultures, before the child is born, they cast the die and find out where the child is coming from, who is being incarnated. There are cases where the child will be very sick and everybody will be thinking the child will die. And then you go to the soothsayer and you try to find out who is the incarnation of the child, and you do some ceremonies and the child will recover for the rest of his life. So I wish that as we go from here, we'll continue thinking of how to draft a pamphlet of 10 bullet points, how the spirituality of our ancestors has inspired modern science. Let's give the floor to others to answer. This is an interesting debate between education and wisdom. Academia is Cartesian education, and the world of wisdom of our ancestors is not Cartesian. I don't know if we're done with questions. I think we have passed the time that is allotted to us.
Obrigada.
We've gone past our time. I'm sure I'm from the diaspora from Portugal. Well, I want to talk about women, and we are the second decade of women. We didn't talk much about our Keita, who is the founder of the Pan-Africanist Organization of Women. I didn't hear you talk about Janine Martin-Sisi, one of our sisters from Guinea Conakry, who was a minister under Sékou Touré, who was the first woman to chair the United Nations General Assembly. United Nations General Assembly. We condemned Portuguese colonialism and generated the liberation, the independence of Angola, Cape Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, and all these countries. We need to talk about these Pan-Africanists. Rodrigo Titinasila of Guinea-Bissau. Women have a part to play, and the role of women has been forgotten. So I want to ask Mariana, what is the role? Where do women feature in the spirituality? It's a Cartesian analysis, Cartesian set of thought, and I think the most recent technology we have is information science, and there are several channels. The IFA, or the African Geomantia, is binary. It has several components. When you're talking about something that is modern, we're talking about wisdom. This is an interesting discussion. As I'm saying, the wisdom of our continent has abided till now. The cultures that have been preserved in the diaspora, some of them that have been preserved, some others have not been preserved. And there will be a renaissance in January, and we will talk about rights a ritual that was lost. There's a day that we'll talk about the oracle that will come and talk about the linking. The issue of the difference between religion and spirituality. I want to start with spirituality. Spirituality is first of all a relationship with the creator energy. Is about saying that the human is not a separate reality, but that human draws its origin from a creator energy that you may call God or gods, who had a goal when he designed and created us. Who is into spirituality cultivates that relationship with the creator God. From that relationship, you refer to the relationship with a space. When you practice spirituality, you know your interdependence with the environment, and all this debate of the Western world on ecology or ecos, and logos is the study, ecology is the discourse on the abode. Our ancestors knew their dependence on the larger house, which is the universe. When our ancestors, before they kill any animal, they must speak to the animal and ask for forgiveness. Or before they cut a tree, they must talk to the forest and ask for forgiveness. Many centuries later, the Westerners thought it was a superstition. Now sometimes they find out later, way later, after they have accused us, and they start doing what we've been doing, and they get to understand. In fact, spirituality is interdependent. It goes from one report to the other. Anthropology, the anthropology of our spirituality, acknowledge the other as being complementary. And our anthropology is not based on the color of the skin. It is not based on our geographic origins. It is rather based on the unicity of the human. We are unique. There's only one human that is manifested in geographical places and color, which are just happen by the way. Our spirituality, if our spirituality is important for us, that leads to, it has a toll on the way we manage our environment and manage one another. When you go back to the history of our ancestors, we never separated spirituality from service to community, which is the real policy or politics. I would say that our way of managing the city or the society, which is politics, is this spirituality helps us to know what managing the society is. For instance, if somebody goes to his community to plead and ask to be voted for to become the president, he's indirectly saying, give me the mandate, give me the mission to lead you. Spirituality is an integral concept. It is very Occidental or Western to think that some have access to God and some are not. Even in the African religions, the sense of priest is Western thought. The guy that we call Hunga, he's a custodian, but I also have direct access. In a voodoo ceremony, the spirit can fall on a child for years. That's why you must be very careful with our. I am a vodulog. I study voodoo. The Hunga or the chief priest is not a priest. They are custodians of tradition. They are in charge of transmitting our tradition, and we need to be very careful. The major distinction between religion and spirituality abides here that religion is a design. Spiritual voodoo, there's nothing called evil. Evil does not exist in isolation. So evil is just the absence of good, the perversion of good. Evil is the refusal to do good. So voodoo doesn't know anything called Satan. It is Westerners. Voodoo doesn't have anything called the devil because the Western civilization is polarizing civilization, separating those who believe from those who don't believe. The voodoo spirituality believes only in good. Even when you call evil, it ends up falling under the overall package called good. When you are religious, you have to fight the religion of the other one because my religion is better, your religion is not good. But when you're spiritual, I learn from you, you learn from me, and I don't have better access to the ascendant than you. We all are sons and daughters of the Creator energy. Thank you to all of you. To conclude, we will call and give the floor to Remy Pelleté, the rapporteur, we call him.
Monsieur Rémy Pelleté,
Thank you. Remy Pelleté, the rapporteur, who is going to tell us a quick word to close this panel.
Monsieur Rémy Pelleté,
Mr. Remy Pelleté, a round of applause for him.
Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, all. Eminent personalities, it's my honor today, on this fourth day of the Pan-African Congress, to give you the report of what we have done so far today. Once again, I would like to commend the facilitator and commend my elders, the panelists, the president of the National Federation, all befitting reverence to you, all befitting reverence to his honorable ministers and dignitaries. I would like to tell you how much more the theme is so important or dear to us, the role of worships and African culture in or toward African development and empowerment of people. It's going to be quick. Let me share the faithful report with you. Right now, I would like to say that for the development of Africa, we need to reconsider the FA, we said that Fa is an indicator, a key one in African conception. I fail to hear that when we talk about spirituality, it all started in Africa, specifically in Egypt. Then, Fa used to guide our ancestors. Everything that needed to be done, they need to consult the Fa in every given area. Politics, economy. Yesterday, Professor Kakonu Bokbo said that we need an African currency. But let me tell you that Africa must go backwards, reconsider our own values, our own facts, so that Africa can be sovereign. Right now, I would like to pay a tribute to all Afro descent. You are all welcome here, coming from Haiti, Cuba, from Brazil. You are all welcome to Togo. Now, let me say that my report will be consistent with whatever has been done in this room. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to our motherland.
Notre modérateur également, merci de les applaudir pour la richesse.
Thank you. Thanks for the richness of the discussions, the debate we have from this rich panel. Thank you so much. A round of applause for all the panelists.
Et je remercie encore une fois tous ceux qui ont fait.
Once again, thanks to all the people who made it to Lomé, the capital city of Togo, to this 9th Pan-African Congress. Dr. Campbell, our own personality from Brazil. We come back at 3 p.m. to continue. Mabula Sumauro, Jean-Baptiste, Claudicia, Yoka, Rokaya Diallo, and we announced it earlier, the projection of Fano movie in this year celebrating or remembrating the centenary. Please make sure you drop all the headsets before going out. The headset must be in the room. See you at 3 p.m.
Rendez-vous non pas à 15h, mais à 14h30, ici même pour...
I'm sorry, not 3 p.m., but 2:30 to celebrate Afro descent and our memories. Once again, welcome to Lomé, to the 9th Pan-African Congress. Thank you.